Good evening, everybody. Did we survive our first full day of the con all right? And I hit the wall about 3 hours ago and all of a sudden found a surge of energy thanks to the press room coffee. So, yeah. So anyway, thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate that. We are actually trying a new panel today. I know how many of you have seen one of our game or entertainment ones. We've been doing those for the last few years at Comic-Con, WonderCon. Been doing game and movie panels for a while. I'm Gareth, creator of Skewed and Reviewed. We're going to go down and introduce the panelists soon. But what we have today is tonight is something interactive. It's going to be just a little bit from us and a lot from you folks, because what we've decided is a brand new idea that I came up with. There's a lot of horror films that are being remade as either TV series, prequels, sequels, so on and so forth. And after I pitched all these other panels like the game ones, this one came to me and I said, wouldn't it be funny if we went down and said, these are the ones that we personally like to see some kind of new content from. So it could be prequel, sequel, whatever. And of course, when we get to the back end of it, there'll be a QR code up there for you to vote on the ones that you like, but there's also the area where you can submit your own, of course, when we get to the questions and answer part. So that gives you a little idea. So let's introduce everybody.
Hi, I'm Genevieve McBride. I'm the managing editor of Skewed and Reviewed. I'm normally not on the dais, but I agreed to play tech support today. If you've been to any of Garrett's panels before, and you've heard any funny stories about his wife Jen, that would be me.
Hi, my name is Michael Newman. I've been with Skewed and Reviewed for over 10 years at this point. I'm part of the weekly podcast that we do. I also do a lot of reviews, movie reviews, game reviews, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is, I think, my second or third SDCC panel. WonderCon, we've obviously done also.
I'm Karen Newman, and I'm married to this cute cutes right here. So I pretty much just follow him around. He follows Gareth around, and I just go and do all the stuff that he does.
I'm Victor Calderon. I'm a contributor with Skewed and Reviewed, and I also do assistant accounting on film and television. Work on American Horror Story and the recently Paradise season 1.
My name is Juliette Calderon, and I'm staff personnel for Skewed and Reviewed for the past couple of years, and I work at Disney, mainly on the streaming platforms. And I have past experience working at the studios for Warner Brothers as well.
Okay, so first up would be mine. So we have number one, Graduation Day. If any of you remember that classic cheesy film, which is available for streaming, that was the one about the track star who days before graduation was pushed too far by her coach and dropped dead at the finish line after winning a meet, and everybody started getting bumped off, and it was infamous for the corpse being displayed by the killer in a cap and gown and carried around, who still wanted to go through with the wedding plans, and it was just very famous for its cheesiness and 80s content, and I thought, you know what, that would be an interesting one to take a modern twist. Obviously, the next one, The Thing, that has been, I know it's a remake in and of itself. There was some talk about a new version that was based on a recently discovered series of chapters from the original source book, and that so far hasn't amounted to anything, but I would definitely love to see something more that way. Sleepaway Camp, for those of you who remember the most infamous twist in the world at the time in horror films, I thought that would be good. And if anybody sees number 2 or 3, Pamela Springsteen, who took over for the lead, is actually the cousin of Bruce Springsteen. They were related. I found that out a few years ago going, no kidding, that's actually one of his relatives. So that was an interesting one. So, summer camp slasher film. Trick or Treat, I think we can all agree, every year or two I keep hearing rumors, there's sequels Hasn't happened yet, but I thought that was definitely one of the more original. And then that number 5 was the tricky one. I had a list of candidates like crazy, and I went with the Funhouse. And that one was interesting. A bunch of kids go to the carnival, they get trapped in the funhouse. There's mutated psycho on the loose, so on and so forth. You have all the little elements of, you know, the preacher, the kids, all the 80s and 70s horror movie stereotypes, and of course, try to throw a little bit of humor in it. So those are mine.
Okay, so I went with the obscure route. A lot of these were 80s movies that were not well done in the first place, and I thought they could actually do with a remake and maybe make them a little bit more entertaining or interesting. Just to be sure, I did rewatch some of these recently, and I realized they are actually worse than I remember them being, which is usually not the case. Usually I can find something redeeming in them. But obviously The Shining, it's been redone as, you know, the Stanley Kubrick version, which notoriously Stephen King was not very pleased with. It was redone in kind of in a miniseries way with the guy from Wings. I'm trying to think of his name.
Weber, wasn't it?
It was Weber, yeah. Which I liked. I thought that version was better than the Stanley Kubrick version. It's interesting. That one's really hard to find streaming anywhere else. But I thought it was a little bit more true to the novel. So obviously, I think that's one, with Dr. Sleep having come out several years ago at this point, it would probably be something that might be worth revisiting The Shining again, just to kind of touch base on that. Life Force, which is one that I just rewatched because it's been a long time. The premise being space vampires, essentially, that come to Earth and take over the Earth. It's a very unique twist on the vampire story, and a very horrible execution. I would not recommend watching it if you haven't seen it already. I probably make it sound more interesting than it is. But it is streaming on Tubi for anybody who wants to watch it for free, which is probably the only way I would recommend watching that movie. But again, I do think there is an idea there, an interesting idea about coming across a spaceship that is derelict, that has vampires on board that are brought back to Earth, thinking that they're dead, only to realize that they're undead, and then chaos ensues. So I think the idea is there. I just don't think the execution was there. But it would be interesting to see what can be done this day and age. The next one up, I'm trying to see what that is from. Night of the Comet. Again, another classic 80s zombie movie. Again, another take. You'll kind of notice the takes on these, a lot of these are space-based ones. The idea being that Halley's Comet, which ironically is in Life Force as well. Big theme in the 80s, apparently. Halley's Comet comes and vaporizes half of the population, and the other half are turned into zombies, except for a couple of people that were in a movie theater who survived, and goes from there. Again, another interesting premise that I'm surprised they haven't redone at this point, but something there. Night Flyers, for those who are not familiar, it was based on a short story by George R.R. Martin. Essentially, it's about a group of scientists, I guess, that are traveling in space to meet up with an alien race to ask them some questions, get to know more about them. And then a lot of the people who are on board, mysteriously, they start dying off in horribly horrific ways. The book, significantly better, I think, than the way it was done. Ironically, George R.R. Martin was responsible for the screenplay of the original, which is surprising because it doesn't really follow the novel or the short story, I guess, very closely. Again, with Game of Thrones being kind of a very key component to his writing, obviously his name would draw something that would be an interesting take to see if they could make that a little bit better given the technology, and of course the premise I think is still interesting. The short story is pretty good, so it'd be interesting to see that take. Something Wicked This Way Comes, a novel that many of us in the 80s had to read for English class, and maybe even earlier. Actually, it's a fantastic book. I would definitely recommend reading the book. I thought the movie they did on it was okay for the time, but again, another type of movie that, while not traditionally a horror sense, has a very creepy premise to it, where a carnival rolls into town and bad things start happening. Very similar to how it kind of comes around. So I think again, another opportunity for something that hasn't been done recently to maybe get another shake.
Okay, so I have a couple of controversial ones that I didn't even want to put on here, but I had to. It's because the remakes that they did do were so awful that I want another shot at them. So the two I'm going to talk about kind of in more Poltergeist than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the Texas Chainsaw is not one of my favorites, but Poltergeist absolutely is, and I was so disappointed in the 2015 remake of it that I want another shot at it. However, I do understand that Poltergeist is a absolute classic masterpiece on its own, so I don't want anybody to touch it at all, but we gotta redeem that 2015 thing. And same with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, the original is kind of everything, and all of these, I don't even know how many remakes and shenanigans that they pulled with that. I wouldn't mind seeing an actual good remake of it. And then kind of with the Event Horizon and Your Next, I'm going to kind of lump those together, even though they're two completely different movies. I just want to see what more, well, mostly for Event Horizon, more a modern take on it, because it is so spacey, and it was done quite a while ago. I think with all of the new technology and everything, I think it could be really, really done really, really well. And then Your Next, I absolutely loved, and I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, just something more, because it was just so good, and once again, it was another unique movie. And then the one I want to talk about the most is The Twilight Zone, because I'm absolutely obsessed with The Twilight Zone, but I like the original Twilight Zone, the show, and I absolutely, as a kid, loved the movie as well. But I would love to see a Twilight Zone movie more based on the kind of the genius and not so farciness of the movie, although I loved it. I want to see like the genius of the original Rod Serling, a movie based on those, because those are just every New Year's weekend, or New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and then 4th of July just had it too. They have those marathons, and that's like my whole existence those times. So I was like, hey, we were just going through what movies we want to pick, and I'm like, that's it. I want Twilight Zone. I want a movie, a really, really good Twilight Zone movie.
Oh, I thought it was controversial.
Oh, you did have some up there. I was like, what was he doing?
Well, with Leprechaun, I looked into it. Warwick Davis stepped away when he had kids, and he wanted to step away from a little bit serious tone movies, even though they were pretty wacky by the time he got to Leprechaun in the Hood. They're getting older now, even with like A Nightmare on Elm Street. They're getting older now, and we haven't gotten a true send-off for those people doing those things. Robert Englund, after Freddy vs. Jason, already said he didn't want to do it anymore. And I look at it like, can you entice him back doing a new movie, but do it like Terminator? Have a new person doing the body and let England come back, do the face, do the voice, just to have him back for one more. Was From Dusk Till Dawn. I really like Sinners, and I know like From Dusk Till Dawn was a really great movie. I know Robert Rodriguez has been sequelizing, remaking, doing everything with his movies with his kids, so maybe this could be one they could touch. Hopefully, but I know Spike hasn't really been doing that great. American Werewolf in London. I know we have London, we have Paris. If there's a new place we can get to, I've recently traveled to Europe, so it's, there's other places we can go to that we haven't gone. But maybe we could get a sequel to that one. We haven't had a good werewolf movie. They're bringing back Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, vampires are coming back, zombies who've never left since The Walking Dead came back. So I think like a good werewolf movie. And the most recent Wolfman movie was really good. It was a great movie. So I think like an American Werewolf in London or another touristy area would be a great movie to see. And with The Fly, The reason why I chose this one was because watching The Substance and that body horror, I think that person would probably do a really great version of that movie. And I would like to see Coraline Fairgap do that. That's the only person I would love to see do a fire pick, is that person, because of what she accomplished in The Substance.
Okay, so I chose these 5 movies mainly because, one, big fan of the Stepford Wives. I did see the Nicole Kidman version before I saw the 1975 version. However, I did like the ending to the original more than I did, I'm all for girl power, oh, we fight back, we got it, but I loved the horror ending that came here, and that it wasn't a happy ending. So, if I could, I would probably do another Stepford Wives, but I would do it a la, we got a couple of vibes from, Don't Worry Darling, and that kind of, picturesque environment. You have someone who becomes aware, the center of the story is still there. But I would try to add a little more Ready or Not to it, and if I could, maybe not even make it into a movie, maybe make it into, a limited release series, and maybe, emphasize a little more on the gore aspect of the women who are getting, who are disappearing from town, kind of show a little bit more of that, more towards 1975 version, a little less away from the Nicole Kidman. Next one was Jaws. So, it's a classic movie, it's great, but I think kind of the trend that we're seeing with some remakes is not always to make it better, but sometimes to see someone's vision with it. And I think with the right director, of course, like I said, classic, but with a new director who has a different vision for it, just seeing more creativity in the artistic way that they shot it. I love the old nostalgia feel, but we have a lot more movies that are aiming towards making it more of a horror movie. Yes, some of the killing scenes are absolutely great because they don't show the nitty-gritty of someone getting completely torn to shreds. But I would like to lean it more into that too. So my biggest critique is always going to be make it a little more gory. You're not going to, throw some extra blood in there, some extra buckets. We've come a long way since what we had back in the 80s. Hostel, I only feel about Hostel just because of the type of climate that we're in. There are tons of protests out in Spain right now. I would love to see it get taken to a level, but maybe would it dial down a little bit more as Scared. But I just think the relevancy of it to the climate that we're in would be great to see, so long as it's done with a little tact in that sense. So the burning, I don't know I didn't like it at all, but I know it's one of those that at the time of its release, it was a huge hit, and I respect that, but it was just, I can't really put my finger on it. When I watched it, it was really tough. I had to rewatch it maybe 3 or 4 times because I kept just turning it off and walking away. But I think the core of the story being there, it gives a lot of the same energy that we get from other campsite movies, but I would love to see it done in a remake version of Fear Street that we saw come out of Netflix, something more towards that. I think the artistic versions would be the best way to remake these films. More blood, more killing, and more artistic creativity in my opinion, please. And then with Pumpkinhead, I love a creature film as much as the next person. You do have, a good contest with Trick or Treat in that sense of pumpkin. But there's tons of Halloween movies, Halloween type movies. Of course, it's going to be the scariest every year. But at the same time, there were 4 movies for Pumpkinhead. I don't know, maybe a remake needs to be redone, but if it were to be redone, maybe just centralize that all into one film instead of just dragging it on. Because once it becomes too many remakes, you lose sight of the story, you lose sight of kind of caring about the character, and that's when interest starts to kind of die off.
Okay, so that is our setup. So now what we'll have you do is you obviously come up. We'll be happy to take questions and comments. But at any time you have the option to go ahead and click this. You can hit the button for which one you want to see remade. And of course, there's the little area on there where you can put in your suggestions. Obviously, there were a lot. When we started kicking around these panels, we were coming up with so many, and it got to be tricky because some of them you're like, well, they're, you know, one of them was suggested and we found out they had just finished filming a remake, or, you know, there's a TV series coming. There was, you know, I'll be honest, Event Horizon was a little tricky because we found out that there's a prequel comic book series after no action on the announced Prime Video series. But we looked at that and said, well, that's a comic. That's not it's not the film version. We're all still waiting for a film version. So there is a lot of stuff out there, especially when you get into the hack and slash films, and it seems like every week that, hey, this one's being considered and this one's being considered, and I kind of had to draw the line at, unless there's casting or the cameras are rolling, then, you know, it's fair game. So, ready to take on some questions. I'm very anxious to see yours. I did want to point out Michael's Life Force thing. There is, I guess, depending on what your level of interest is, it does feature a pre-Jean-Luc Picard Patrick Stewart, but I think obviously making it family appropriate. The main reason anyone watched it essentially was for the leading actress who spends probably 90% of the movie
I will say
saving the wardrobe budget. So
I will say though, I think it might be Jean-Luc Picard. Patrick Stewart's first male-on-male kiss on screen.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah.
like I said, don't. Yeah.
And
Don't pay to see it.
Texas
I don't even know if you
Chainsaw.
should watch it. I was watching it mainly for educational purposes, and that might be even a little bit too long.
Texas Chainsaw. The film rights are up for grabs right now, so that's part of it. But then again, they had their chances while they weren't up for grabs to make a new one. And the last one we got was the Netflix one was that 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
The only good part was the self-driving car finale, but yeah, that's me. Okay, so definitely interested to hear what your thoughts are. So
there are some that we have had some activity in the poll, and the top three right now, tied for the top.
Life
First
is
place-
number one, right?
A Nightmare on Elm Street, Poltergeist, and then there's a tie between Twilight Zone and You're Next.
Oh, all of you.
I got the inspiration for Nightmare on Elm Street watching that trailer for the Black Phone 2. It gave me a little bit of like Nightmare on Elm Street when I watched it.
all right, so we have a question.
Not so much of a question, but just a couple of suggestions. Tombs of the Blind Dead.
That's going back. That is.
Well, I mean, zombie ghostly nights back from the dead that terrify innocent civilians. What could go wrong with that?
That's not a bad idea at all.
And the obvious suggestion, which everybody should have thought of, is bring back the Brendan Fraser mummy movies.
That's the only reason I didn't mention that is they had just wrapped about 2 weeks ago. They wrapped filming on the latest Mummy movie, and it's done by. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. Lee Cronin, who was the one who did the most recent Evil Dead film, and then there's apparently another Evil Dead film about to go into pre-production, but not with Raimi. So that we actually had the Mummy on the list, and then literally I had it on the list, and the email came through going, Lee Cronin has just wrapped filming on the new version of the Mummy. I'm like, yeah, great, off the list it goes. So. But yeah, that's good. I mean, I was getting obscure. I was looking at some of my old Air Force Day, desperate to rent anything. I mean, I had like Rawhead Rex, the Microwave Massacre, the Nail Gun. I mean, I was like, going as obscure, remember the stuff, the one about the dessert food that was actually living, I was like looking at that going, it's a very dark path you don't want to go down, because once you start, you can go, A, there's a lot of movies out there, and B, I have watched way too many bad movies in my life.
Well, you know, there's one that we didn't think about.
What's that?
The Blob.
Of course.
And again, yes, that was redone, oh wow, 20 years?
Late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, that's the last one.
That's another one of those that every few years you hear this, hey, so-and-so's pitched a remake of The Blob, and I'm like, all right, believe it, my films.
So there are some suggestions here.
All right, we like suggestions.
The first one, and see, I'm not a horror connoisseur like these guys here. I do go to movie screeners with Garrett,
Like that. Well,
and this is, yeah, that's exactly what I do. Anything that's scary. The last one was,
I know what you did last summer, and I
they
giggle
spent
like
most
a
of the movie
banshee
just
during
staring
all
at
of it.
Garrett. But someone suggested The Burbs.
I like it.
Herbs is a good one.
Burbs is a TV show now. I don't know if it was announced, but I happened to be on the lot, and I thought I saw stuff for it.
Yeah, that was another one of those
I've
announced
heard
and talked
something.
about. Yeah.
I've heard rumors. I didn't know if there was any official.
To be clear, he did not bring any NDAs.
I don't work on
What else do we have?
The Babadook.
Oh.
Oh.
I
yeah.
love them.
Again, another one that the original is so
So
good, it's hard to imagine redoing that.
Yeah, that was good, but yeah, that would be good to see.
If anybody has not seen that film, highly recommend.